I stand before you not as a shadow, not merely as the unremembered brother murdered by a brother at age 22, but as a man of breath and blood, a prince who was once promised the co-rule of an empire and ended with naught but betrayal and fading whispers. Here is my story. I am Publius Septimius Geta, and my name may flicker dimly behind the brilliance of my kin, but today I speak to you in full measure. Mine is a tale of ambition, of blood and betrayal, of familial love shattered by ambition's cruel edge. It is a tale of the rise and fall, and the price borne by the ambitions that burned too brightly. Before my final breath was stolen, I whispered my truth. I unmask that truth now before the court of posterity. I was born in the year 189 AD in Mediolanum, modern Milan, within the shadow of a rising imperial dynasty forged by my father, Septimius Severus, and mother, Julia Domna, the queen philosopher. You may know the tales of my elder brother Caracalla, his exploits bold and brazen. Yet my own tale began in the same cradle, with lullabies of power whispered in one ear and warnings of betrayal in the other. Our childhood was a gilded lie of imperial promise. My father, a conqueror of endless ambition, sought to bind Rome's future with blood, and so my brother and I were raised not as rivals, but as co-rulers in waiting. Harmony, they said, brothers together. Oh, what a thin illusion that proved. I was given an education to mould not just a man but an emperor. Tutors versed in rhetoric, philosophy, mathematics, and military history filled my days with knowledge both practical and arcane. From our great philosopher mother, I learned to pierce the heart of sophistry, to understand both the steel of argument and the softer currents of human weakness. From my father, I gained the gaze of an eagle, hunting ambition in friend and foe alike. Yet despite our differences in temperament, my brother's passion to lead the charge, and my desire to plan and calculate, we were expected to be as one. I grew up in Rome's imperial palace, surrounded by intrigue that dripped like poison from the rafters. Every gesture carried double meaning, every word an opening move in the great game of survival. My relationship with Caracalla, from the earliest days, was both love and war. An unsteady brotherhood, trembling under the weight of paternal expectation and ambition's cruel lash. We were taught to be emperors together, yet every game of childhood foreshadowed the bitter contests to come. Do you understand yet how thin the line was? One moment of affection-shared laughter at a tutor's scolding, a boyish quarrel mended with a glance, and the next moment, a sword drawn in silent challenge. In time our paths would diverge, but for now, in this moment of shared beginnings, I want you to see not emperors or killers, but boys burdened by destiny's weight. Remember this, for I will tell you how it all unraveled. Next I will speak of my rise, and of how that destiny became a tangled knot of fate that none of us could untangle. Destiny marched on, relentless as the legions. As my brother and I grew into young men, so too did our father's empire grow heavy with its own conquests and schemes. When Severus marched north to the wind-swept lands of Britannia, he summoned us to his side, not as mere sons, but as heirs to Rome's future. Our father, already wearied from his endless campaigns, sought to bind us together under the weight of shared duty. "Govern as brothers," he commanded, "for a house divided will not stand." He meant it as both warning and plea. In this crucible of the North, I learned the true nature of what my father intended. In Britannia, I rode alongside Severus as he sought to bring the rebellious tribes to heel. The smell of blood and frost hung heavy in the air, but it was my brother's eyes that chilled me most. Caracalla craved the glory of war. I understood the cost of victory. He charged recklessly into battle, eager to bask in the acclaim of the legions, while I held back, weighing strategy and the lives we would leave buried under frozen soil. This difference in our natures became a crack in the veneer of brotherly unity, a crack that no oath or imperial decree could mend. Our father's health waned, and as he lay dying in 211 AD, he spoke words that sealed my fate. Share the throne, protect Rome, protect each other. He sought to weld us together with his final breath, but even then, I knew he was asking too much. My father closed his eyes. His hand grew cold in mine. He was gone, and with him died whatever balance had been maintained between us. I ascended alongside Caracalla as joint emperor of Rome. It was a moment that should have been one of triumph, a testament to our father's legacy and the fulfillment of his vision. But I saw the glint of ambition in my brother's eyes. I felt the heat of his contempt. Sharing power to Caracalla was a half measure, an insult. To him I was an obstacle, a lesser star eclipsing his rightful shine. The oaths we made to our father in his last moments became chains that chafed. From the moment of our shared ascension, the seeds of division were sown. The Senate saw it. The people whispered of it. We were emperors, yes, but brothers at war in all but name. I sought to consolidate the empire's fragile peace, to restore stability and uphold justice. My brother sought glory, blood, and dominion. Our court became a battlefield of politics, alliances made and broken in a single breath. I fortified my allies and he fortified his. The dream of unity that my father had nurtured was slipping through my fingers, even as I fought to grasp it. Day after day, I attempted to play the game of diplomacy, to heal the rift that grew between us. My efforts were in vain. Caracalla would not be tempered, and the court whispered louder of assassinations, of coups in the dark. Rome trembled as it watched its emperors spiral toward ruin. The dream of ruling together was becoming a nightmare. What would come next, I feared, would be blood. And as I would soon learn, my fears were well-founded. In the next chapter, I will tell you of the brief reign I struggled to carve and how it compared to the fire that burned through my brother's rule. And then, I will speak of how fate delivered its cruel judgment. To rule is to balance the weight of the empire's shifting needs. But what chance has balance in the face of ambition's tempest? In the months following our ascension, I learned what it meant to wear the laurel and know its thorns. Caracalla and I ruled together in name, but in spirit we could not have been more distant. As Rome's co-emperors, our reign was a theatre, each move masking the underlying reality of our deepening enmity. What we presented as unity to the Senate and the people was nothing more than a festering wound beneath the imperial purple. I, Publius Septimius Geta, sought to govern as a stabilizing force. I focused on judicial reforms, strengthening the provinces, and tempering the heavy hand of taxation. My vision was to create a legacy rooted in justice, one that upheld Rome's greatness, not through the sword, but through law and civil order. I favored diplomacy with the Senate and sought to respect their ancient traditions, bringing them into matters of state, a gesture meant to revive Rome's faltering unity. Caracalla, in contrast, saw my outreach as weakness and betrayal. His desire was domination, untempered by anything but force. For every hand I offered in partnership, his grip tightened around a dagger. The palace itself became a battleground. I surrounded myself with trusted advisors and sought the counsel of scholars, thinkers, and reformers. Caracalla answered by surrounding himself with loyal soldiers, men who would gladly kill on his command. I can recall the suffocating feeling of the days spent in Rome's halls of power, knowing that every step, every whisper, could be my last. The empire saw two emperors, one attempting to mend its fractures, and one driven to incite flames of conquest and violence. What had changed since our father's reign? Everything and nothing. We were brothers torn apart by ambition's curse, wielding power as rivals and enemies. I endeavored to rule with fairness. My brother schemed to rule alone. Caracalla sought to undermine every policy I introduced, dismantling reforms and discrediting my allies. My efforts to preserve the state were met with steel. Every proposal became a matter of life or death. The very concept of co-rule disintegrated as mistrust turned to hatred. I saw no path to reconciliation. Our attempts to divide the empire into separate courts, a desperate gambit to stem the tides of bloodshed, did little more than deepen our rival factions. Rome grew weary under the weight of our unresolved war, and the legions muttered with discontent. It was inevitable that one of us would strike. I sensed the time was near. Caracalla's thirst for absolute power knew no limits, and I would soon be his target. It was in December of 211 AD, in a quiet chamber within the imperial palace, that I met my end. My brother, with the cruel efficiency I had come to know well, arranged for my assassination. His men descended upon me, their blades reflecting my own fear and rage. Betrayal had completed its work. Blood pooled beneath me, and the crown I had sought to preserve was stolen away. My reign had become a footnote, a brief, faltering attempt to stem Rome's decay. Next, I will recount the shadow that my death cast upon the empire and the legacy I left behind. A legacy, fractured and stained by my own blood, that Rome would carry in its bones. Would history remember me as a symbol of failed unity, or as a man who sought something noble amidst ruin? Let me tell you what the shadow bore. I was 22 years old when my brother's ambition extinguished my life. Death for me did not come quietly. The dagger's cold edge, the grasp of betrayal upon my throat, the final gasps of breath, these haunt me still. It was not just an end. It was the violent erasure of my hope to rule as more than a pawn in an empire's blood-soaked game. As I fell, so too fell the fragile dream of co-rule, of balance in the empire, of harmony in the Severan lineage. Caracalla, my own blood, became not just an emperor that day, but an executioner who sealed our father's legacy in cruelty and flames. In the moments before the light dimmed from my eyes, I understood with crushing clarity that I had become a cautionary tale. My brother's ambition had triumphed, and all that I had sought to build crumbled in that act of murder. I was erased from public memory with brutal efficiency. Caracalla declared damnatio memoriae upon me, a decree to wipe my existence from Rome's history. My statues were shattered, my name chiselled from inscriptions, and my deeds reduced to silence. To the people of Rome I ceased to exist. Even in death, my brother's cruelty knew no bounds. My death did not bring stability, nor did it quell Rome's turbulence. Instead, it ignited a legacy of tyranny that haunted my brother's reign. The legions murmured, and the people whispered of blood on the throne. Caracalla ruled alone, as he had always intended, but Rome suffered for his victory. The years that followed my death saw massacres, extortions, and ruthless campaigns of vengeance. The empire was thrown into deeper instability, with fear as its sole currency. Yet in my absence, small ripples formed ripples of resistance, of quiet remembrance. Some whispered that I had sought justice, that I had tried to temper Rome's cruelty. Though my brother tried to erase me, he could not fully extinguish what I had represented. The contrast between our reigns became the measure of Rome's judgment. While I lay dead, a ghost in Caracalla's shadow, the memory of what might have been lingered in the minds of the few who dared to remember. I became a symbol not of triumph, but of lost opportunity, of fragile unity crushed by ambition's weight. My death was a shadow that stretched across the empire, a constant reminder of how close we came to a different fate, and how far we fell from it. Next, I will tell you of my legacy, the embers that refused to die, even as the fire of my life was snuffed out. There is a story yet in the ashes. In death, I became a shadow, a forgotten prince buried beneath Rome's blood-soaked stones. Yet even the darkest shadows can sometimes leave a faint trace upon the world they leave behind. My brother sought to erase me from memory, but the ripples of my brief reign echoed in ways he could not fully control. Where he brought terror, I had once sought justice. Where he wielded brutality, I had offered governance and law. For a fleeting moment, the people remembered. They saw my murder not as a victory, but as the theft of something fragile and precious, an opportunity for Rome to be more than a battlefield for ambition's cruel games. Historians in later years would regard me as a tragic figure, a man who might have been a force for stability had I survived. Though Caracalla tried to sever every reminder of me, the whisper of what could have been lingered on the tongues of the people. I became a symbol for those who dared to dream of an empire tempered by justice, one where strength was measured not solely by bloodshed, but by the resilience of its institutions and the bond of its people. My mother, Julia Domna, grieved in quiet agony, caught between loyalty to the son who remained and the memory of the son who was taken. For those who remembered me in secret, my legacy became that of the emperor who might have ruled differently. My supporters clung to that hope, passing tales of my vision down through the years, even if those tales were nothing more than fading echoes. Some argued that I was no saint, that I had wielded intrigue as deftly as any member of my family. Perhaps they are right, yet in my fleeting time on the throne, I sought a different path, a path not dominated solely by ambition's dagger. It was a vision Rome needed, but one that was extinguished too soon. Even the empire itself was marked by our clash. My brother's reign, so stained by cruelty, became a cautionary tale that historians compared against our brief, fragile co-rule. My murder underscored the dangers of unchecked ambition, of tyranny, of the poisonous path of violence as a means to power. I could not know it then, but even my blood served as a reminder of why the empire needed stability and reform. My legacy was, in the end, the memory of potential unrealized, a fleeting flame that could not withstand the storm. And yet even now I ask you to see me as more than a victim, more than a cautionary tale. In my death, Rome saw a glimpse of what might have been, and it was that memory, as fragile as it was, that inspired some to seek a different path in generations to come. Next I will ask, was it worth it? Did the pain and the betrayal serve any purpose? Or was it all merely the futile struggle of men trying to grasp eternity? Let me tell you what I believe it all meant and why, even in ruin, I still believe. I stand before you now as a man who lived and died for the hope of unity, of justice, of a Rome that could be both powerful and compassionate. I, Publius Septimius Geta, ask you, what value can be placed on ambition if it leaves the world more broken than before? My life ended with a brother's blade, a cautionary tale of betrayal and ruin, but I do not believe it was all for nothing. Though I lie in the shadows of history, I know that the struggle for a better Rome, one of justice, equality and reason, still mattered. It mattered then, and it matters now. Was my reign worth the cost? In hindsight, the pain, the betrayal, and the bloodshed appear as monuments to the darkness of human ambition. But even amidst that darkness, there was light, a light that flickered in the brief moment when Rome might have stood for something greater than conquest, power, or tyranny. I wanted to be more than just another cog in the great grinding wheel of empire. I wanted Rome to live up to its promise, a promise that so often slipped through the hands of those who wielded power. Equality, freedom, liberty. These were the ideals I struggled for, even as I faced insurmountable odds. Equality is the foundation upon which any enduring power must rest. In my attempts to work with the Senate and bring their voice into matters of state, I sought to strengthen a tradition of shared governance, not as an enemy of the emperor, but as a partner to Rome's future. Freedom is precious. It is a flame easily extinguished. Caracalla would see it smothered beneath his heel, but I wanted to nurture it, whether through justice reform or by creating a culture where voices could be heard without fear. Liberty must be protected, for it is the right of every citizen, not just those who hold swords or scepters. In my fleeting reign, I tried to create a Rome that upheld these ideals, knowing all too well that my efforts might be snuffed out. I know my legacy is complex. Some see me as weak, a man unable to rise against the might of a ruthless brother. But I ask you, what strength is greater? To wield power with cruelty, or to attempt to use it with justice, even if that means standing alone against ambition's tide? I have no illusions. I lost, yet what I stood for matters more than the victory or defeat of one man. To those who seek to touch the past, I invite you to walk where I walked. Visit Rome's ruins and feel the weight of history beneath your feet. Seek out the places I called home, the chambers where alliances were forged and betrayed. Study the coins bearing my name, scattered fragments of a life erased but never wholly forgotten. Through them, remember not just who I was, but who I tried to be. Our Renaissance spirit is more than just a way of thinking, it is a pursuit of truth, a living connection to history. Embrace knowledge, understand humanity's triumphs and failures, and strive to make the world better for all. Thank you for your time, and for listening to the story of a man often consigned to the shadows. Remember that even in the darkest tales, there is a lesson worth preserving. Please join us as we continue to explore history, society, and what it means to pursue a better, more just world. Subscribe, share, and connect. If you wish to know more, I invite you to take the next steps with us. Discover what it means to be part of the Renaissance spirit. Vive Renaissance Spiritus. History is not dead. It is waiting for us to listen, learn, and grow from it.